Okay, hold on. Mute, of course, mute. Let's have a look. Okay, hold on. Can everybody hear me, by the way? Okay, let's have a look. Hold on. Can everybody hear me?
It's good now, I guess.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I think I'm in charge. Go ahead, Steve. You can take it from here.
All right, everybody. Welcome to episode 124 of VR Roundtable. I'm your host. I was just saying that because I'm not at home and because Gary has producer duty, that I was being host, and we got off to a great, fantastic start. So this week is going to be very easy to predict what we're going to talk about. We're going to be talking about the Oculus hardware launches, Quest and Rift-S. So without further ado, let's just jump into it here. The first one, let's go ahead and talk about the Rift-S. Mostly because I feel like we were going to have more to say about the Quest, and there's more meat to dig into. So with the Rift-S, I spent some time with it, not anywhere near as much with the Quest, but I got my Rift-S on launch day, and I played with it a little bit that night. But before I give my impressions, Chris, I'm going to send it your way. I think you mentioned before we started recording that you haven't used the Rift-S too much, but go ahead and give us your initial impressions.
Yeah, definitely. So it was good for me because I tried the Quest and Rift-S at PAX East a little bit, but definitely things have changed. I mean, I do think the screen is fantastic right off the bat. I mean, people who were, worried about the LCD, I think this puts to rest any of those worries. I feel like the Pimax probably did that for you, Steve, like back then anyway. But yeah, for me, the Rift-S screen is, absolutely fantastic. The comfort is a lot better for me as well. I love the Halo strap design, and thank goodness it's right because, the Samsung Odyssey Plus had that awful, awful head strap that would just feel super uncomfortable. So it's just good to see someone finally getting that right. I've even heard other Lenovo VR headsets had terrible comfort too, so that was a little bit worrying, but ended up being good. I think the thing that sucks for me the most is the audio is absolute garbage, and it was way worse than I remembered because I think at PAX East I had like noise canceling Bose headphones, so I didn't even think about the audio. But jumping into Beat Saber, really clear. The tracking was perfect. I mean, that's another thing. Perfect tracking for me, like always, really. Played Lone Echo, didn't even notice any problems whatsoever. So that's also a good thing. But yeah, just the audio is garbage. And, Nate Mitchell talked a little bit about the audio, and he's like, yeah, we're going to work on a software update to probably fix some EQing of the audio. And I think the saddest thing is, I was playing Beat Saber. I had that volume pretty high, and then when bass kicks in, you hear the volume dip down like by half. So like it was really rough. Way worse than the Quest audio and Go audio. So I'm hoping they can fix that. But yeah, I'll definitely have to get some headphones for this thing. Other than that, I feel like everything else about it is a pretty big upgrade. Yeah, I'll let someone else talk about it because I know you guys have it as well.
Well, my first thoughts on it was I was really impressed with the quality of the screen, the clarity. And I always talk about acuity, clarity. I don't like running TXAA and FXAA anti-aliasing. I just like a sharp, even if it's got some pixel noise or whatever, I prefer the sharper look. And the Rift-S really surprised me. It was better than I was thinking it would be. Now, I was already on board with the change to LCD because I very much prefer the RGB subpixel arrangement. And I've already had at least one person in chat ask for me to compare it to the Pimax. And I would say on a clarity aspect, the Rift-S is half the resolution of the Pimax because the Pimax has two 2560 by 1440 displays in it, one per eye. But what I think is happening here, I think the Rift-S looks better in part because of the differences in field of view, but also because I think there's a lessened magnification factor on the lenses. I think Oculus has done a better design in that aspect. So, and I think the colors are a little more vibrant on the Rift-S. I think of all the headsets I've tried, and I haven't spent an enormous amount of time with it, so take it for what it is, but my initial reaction and spending a few hours with it this week was that it is my favorite display of all headsets I've ever tried right now on the market. Now, the index may trump that. Unfortunately, the field of view is really small, and it's been a long time since I've had my face in an Oculus headset, and they're already down from like the Vive and the Odyssey headsets. So it was a pretty jarring jump from Pimax to Rift-S. But in terms of quality, acuity, the lenses are really good. I want to caution myself from saying there's no God rays, because it's hard to say that there are zero. But comparing it to the CV1 and comparing it to the Quest, I feel like the Rift-S lenses are much better than the Quest lenses as well. So big improvements over CV1 in glare, God rays, and visual acuity. Of course, we have the reduced blacks due to going to an LCD screen, but everyone watching this and listening to this knows that. So all in all, I think if I was going to make a sort of a high level recommendation, if someone has a CV1, whether they should jump to the Rift-S, it's hard because there's lots of downsides as well. As the audio is a big deal. I really hated when they made that announcement, and I've taken my Mantis Bionics off of my PlayStation VR and I put them on my Rift-S, and that works fine, but it's not as good as the CV1. So I would say for anyone curious that hasn't jumped in on Rift-S, if they want to look at getting it from a CV1, then I would say, where do you weigh the God rays and clarity aspect and versus wanting to keep the integrated audio. Comfort-wise, I prefer the Quest and the CV1 sort of clamshell over the redesigned Halo, but that's kind of a wash in my opinion. So I'll quit rambling. Gary, what's your thoughts on Rift-S?
Yeah, well, first impressions were pretty good. So I mean, with the field of view, so I've got it here, and what this does is it uses a similar kind of thing to the PSVR, where you've got this button that you can press and move the headset, the actual display in and out. It's similar to PSVR, but it doesn't move as far as PSVR. And I did find that when I put the headset on first and then tried to bring that in, I couldn't get it close enough in order to get like a decent field of view. I mean, I noticed like it was really like a huge reduction from CV1 in field of view. But then when I went down and I sort of moved this closer before I put it on my head and then adjusted it based on that, I found that the field of view was a little bit better, like comparable to the CV1, pretty much the same at that point. But that was sort of one of the concerns of mine. And also, I mean, I suppose if I'm touching on some of the bad points before I get onto the positives on the headset, I think that the Halo strap, yeah, for me, I agree. I prefer the old CV1 headset, the head strap on that, and that's not necessarily just to do with comfort, but also to do with just ease of use in terms of getting it on and off and trying different things. It just felt a lot better to me with the old CV1. The Halo strap, although once it's on, it's comfortable, it's just more of a hassle in terms of getting it on and then tightening it up, and it just feels like there's a little bit more friction in that, really. Obviously audio, I think we can take it as read. The audio on the Rift-S is like this is one of the main baffling things to me with this product. The audio is such a downgrade, and I felt like it was going to be good enough, and in some ways it is good enough. But if you really want to get immersed in an experience, then you need the headphones, and that becomes a two-step process where you have to put on the headset, then put on the headphones, then all of a sudden you forgot to set something on your PC, so you take them off and you have to do something else. It's this friction which I find a bit more with the Rift-S than the original CV1. So that aside, I agree with you, Steve. The display is really good, and you've got like an AB with the Pimax. See, with me, when I first went into the Rift-S, I felt like the resolution was a relatively good upgrade, but that's also how I felt with the Pimax. But when I think you posted something on Discord and on Twitter how it's the clearest display that you had. For me, like, I didn't see too much between like the central part of the Pimax and the Rift-S, but I've not AB'd it, and I only had the Pimax for a week. What do you think?
I think in terms of clarity, when I said it's the clearest, I can't super sample a Pimax. It takes just about every drop out of my 2080 on most titles to keep it at just 1.0 super sampling. On the Rift S, I can super sample at 1.5 in Tray Tool, which is equivalent to about 225% in Steam VR. And I think I think they're very, very close in acuity, but having the ability to super sample significantly on the Rift S gives it the edge and clarity. And then again, I think the colors are a little more vibrant and better on the Rift S as well. Way back, I think last year when the Oculus Go came out, I said, why doesn't Oculus release a headset that upgrades the CV1 to this display and these lenses? And a lot of people in chat, well, I don't know if we were doing chat back then, but a lot of people commented on the video and in Reddit and such, and were saying, no, we want them staying focused on the Rift 2. We don't want them to lose focus on this medium upgrade. I think in hindsight, maybe I was wrong in saying that, because looking at this Rift S, there's a lot. Now, I wouldn't have said back then, I wouldn't have said, hey, they should come up with a Rift refresh and get rid of the integrated audio and get rid of IPD and completely rechange the way that you put the headset on. Like, I wouldn't have asked for any of those things. I think the Rift S would have been a better product if they simply would have just upgraded the displays and upgraded the lenses and done nothing else. Like, would you be happier with that version of the Rift S? Gary, I'll go to you first.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good point. Because some of the other decisions don't make sense to me. The like you mentioned, like the Halo strap and the audio. Yeah, I agree. I think that would be a better version of the Rift S for me. Although I will say, from what I'm hearing in terms of reports, like some people, Anthony, we can go over to you on this as well. Like the comfort level of the original CV1, I didn't have a problem with comfort on the CV1 at all, but I know a lot of people did. And this is the strange thing to me. I felt like it was because they often allude to this thing like it's a baseball cap and it's easy to put on, it's easy to take off. And that was the thing that appealed to me. But when it was on me, I didn't have any issues with comfort. Once I'd got it dialed in, everything felt really good with the CV1. And I can understand people liking the Halo strap more in terms of like a long-term comfort. Like if you want to spend an hour, 2 hours in VR, then I suppose once the headset's on you, you do get a better overall comfort level with the Rift S, with the Halo strap. What are your thoughts, Anthony?
Well, what are my thoughts on the comfort or what?
Well, start on the comfort and then move on, yeah.
Yeah, so, well, first of all, let's start with this. I don't have a Rift S. I'm the one person that does not have a Rift S, and I had a plan. I drove to a Best Buy. I just assumed, I mean, I guess I was out of my mind to assume this, but I just assumed that every Best Buy would get like 3 or 4 of them at a bare minimum. And so in Sacramento, we've got like 3 or 4 major Best Buys that are located. And I ended up driving to one because there was a Fry's Electronics that wasn't too far away from that. So I figured I got 2 opportunities in case, one of them doesn't have it. Went to the Best Buy, nada. They didn't have nothing. Fry's didn't have nothing. And what I should have did right after that was over, I should have immediately drove to the other Best Buy. Probably would have got one, but I got lazy and was like, I got to get back home. I'm going to play Quest, and so didn't get a Rift S. I tried it, of course, at GDC. I had some experience with it, so I did feel the comfort and everything. And the baseball hat comparison, I think, again, one thing that I'm always going to argue when it comes to VR, and I really look forward to this long distance future where it isn't one size fits all. There are so many different shapes of heads out there on planet Earth. We think of ourselves like we're all humans. We're all very similar. But when you look at like animals out in the wild, there's giraffes of all different shapes and sizes, right? Horses, dogs, cats, there's a lot of variance out there. And when I was in San Francisco, I was at GDC back in March. You see like every possible human known to man in San Francisco just walking along the streets and just so many different head sizes. And I think people that really like CV1 and in terms of a fit probably have maybe a bit of a smaller head than the average person, a little, or I mean, not necessarily smaller, but not a giant head probably. And because like Gary, you kind of enjoy the comfort of CB1. I think Mike from Virtual Reality Oasis, I think he said several times that he actually preferred the CB1 style. I never liked it though. I like every time, I mean, I've tolerated it, but it would always bother me after a while. And so the Rift S, like a few of the things that I'm really looking forward to when I do finally get this in my own house and actually have one. I didn't think it was going to be this hard to acquire one. But when I get it, I'm looking forward to the comfort. I'm looking forward to Pass Through Plus, and I'm looking forward to a brand new cable. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but I got to tell you, man, a brand new cable, like just a cable that has no knots, no twists, perfectly straight. It's a beautiful thing. It's like when you get a brand new car, you have that new car smell. It doesn't last forever, and your new cable isn't going to last forever. But I guess it's on me because I've always been lazy about like putting my stuff away. Some people disconnect everything and they wrap it up nice and perfectly when they're done playing. I don't. I just kind of put my headset down on the ground. I put it somewhere where the cat hopefully isn't going to sit on top of it, but that's about it. But yeah, as far as like what a lot of people are saying out there about the differences in the resolution and stuff like that, I honestly think the resolution bump is so tiny. I don't even think it's perceptible. Like, I think it's a placebo effect that people are noticing an improvement in resolution. No, but wait a minute, Steve. You gotta hear me out here. Okay, there's an immediate difference. You'll immediately see it. I don't think it's the resolution. I think it's LCD. When you put on like if you put on an Oculus Go or you put on a Rift S, any boxes, any text, it's the RGB stripe. That's what you're noticing. The resolution, like, why don't we do this? Somebody, excuse me, somebody calculated out the resolution of a CB1 and the resolution of a Rift S, like subtract it. How many extra lines is it? It's like 100 and something lines by 200 lines. Like, do you really think that is perceptible by the human eye? I don't think so. I think what you're noticing, I'm not trying to throw shade or like say it's bad or anything. I'm just saying you're noticing the RGB stripe. You're noticing the strengths of LCD. That's what you're noticing, which is great. And it's an improvement. But I don't think anybody's seen, like, I don't think it's humanly possible to notice such a tiny resolution bump.
Then why would they go to that resolution? They would stay at whatever the CV1 resolution is and go to LCD on that. Like you can tell the difference of increased resolution for sure.
No, the resolution that's the screen they're using. It's the screen they used in Go. That just happens to be the resolution of that screen, and they've got 1 million of them in a warehouse, so that's what they're sticking with basically.
My point is, even on the Go, they could have kept it to what was the 1200 by 1080 per eye of the CV1. So they could have, or 1080 by 1200. So they could have kept that on the Go. The lower the resolution, the better the performance. The Quest could have been lower resolution. Like if there was no benefits to the higher resolution, then the benefit of staying with a lower resolution is performance and frame rate. Like if there was no benefit at all other than we would still be using, they would have sought out for the Go and for the Quest, they would have sought out 1080 by 1200 per eye panels. Or they'd have pulled a Sony and done a singular 1920 by 1080 panel. But out of the gate, we've had higher resolution, and I think there's a benefit there, no question. I mean, it's not the same as going from 720p to 4K, or it's not a dramatic jump, but it's for something that you shove your face in and it fills up your entire field of view, and you use it for hours every day, and then you suddenly put something in that's better, you notice it.
It's the RGB stripe.
Either way, yeah. But yeah, either way, I mean, however they're achieving this, whether it's RGB stripe or the higher resolution, it's not a placebo effect. It is legitimately clearer, whether that's coming from the resolution, the number of pixels, or whether it's coming from the RGB stripe. And I think it's a combination of the two. I will agree with you. I don't think it's entirely down to the fact, because if I go into the Quest and then I go back to the Rift S, you could argue that certain points in the Quest would be equally as clear as they are in the Rift-S. But there is there is a significant difference between the CV1 and the Rift-S. Beyond, I mean, I agree. It could be the LCD, the RGB stripe.
No, that is a big part of this particular case. What I'm saying is if there was no resolution benefit, then all they would have taken the existing CV1 resolution and done it in an LCD RGB subpixels and kept the resolution the same and therefore keep the performance the same. If there's no benefit in higher resolution, setting aside subpixel types, if there's no benefit, then you might as well keep resolution lower so that your hardware requirements and stuff is better.
Yeah, but either way, it's so impressive how I still am running a 980. I'm still getting this like pretty much the same performance on all these games. I can still run Lone Echo, and I can still play it on the Rift-S, which is awesome because I don't want to have to upgrade to 2080 yet. Like that's gonna cost more than the headset itself just for me to make an upgrade like that. I also was thinking of something that people don't talk about very often, and that's like the new touch controllers. Because for me and a lot of people, they're actually kind of like cheaper feeling. And to me, I miss the thumb rest a lot more than I thought I would. Like I remember a lot of people don't even know the thumb rest exists, but on the old touch controllers, it had this nice thumb rest. So for social games, you could just kind of place it there and give thumbs up really easily. Just on this, a lot of things felt cheaper. Like, you know, there's some flex in the tracking ring. I didn't have any of that on the old touch controller. So just doing like a direct A/B, since I have both of them, like, you know, you can see all the cost cutting. But, you know, I guess with that being said, I understand why they did it. I also think it's not that big a deal. They still have all the same functionality. So it's a trade-off. But, you know, for people maybe who are using the old touch controllers and love them, they might be like, man, these are a little bit cheaper, because they are a little cheaper. One thing also on comfort is I've noticed a lot of people, you know, I had a lot of people try the Rift-S when I got it. I had my whole team in our VR development game come over and try it. And I think if you have glasses, for most people at least, who have like bigger glasses, the Rift-S is by far easier for them to take on and off. I'm sure Steve has it down by now with the old baseball cap design, but for all the people on my team, they would just like, you know, put their glasses on over first, tighten it in the back, and it was really easy for them to move the screen in and out. So I think, you know, for anyone with glasses, this is going to be easily more comfortable than the original Rift. I think that was one of the most restrictive in terms of like jamming your glasses on the sides and things like that. So
yeah, couple last points on my impressions with the Rift-S. The Halo, we've known that they Lenovo ran the design in that aspect, and that they licensed the Halo design from Sony on the PlayStation VR. But I will say that Halo is not as good on a PlayStation VR. One aspect that I like on the PlayStation VR is when you go to grab the Halo, you pull, and it's got the bands to kind of give you the bigger gap, and then you slip it over your head. The Rift-S doesn't have the bands. There is nothing when you pull it. So you got to turn the knob to loosen it, put it on, turn the knob to tighten it every time. The PlayStation VR, if you weren't putting it on different people, what would happen is you would set it for your size, and then you'd use the band for day-to-day use to slip it on your head. You weren't having to turn the knob every time. So I think there's a step down. So while everyone says that the Halo design is borrowed from PlayStation, and that's a good design, it is a good design, but it's not 100% borrowed. PlayStation VR still executes it better. Did you notice that, Gary?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I think they do execute that better, and it's, you know, that's sort of part of what I was alluding to earlier in terms of like bringing the headset close to your face. It just didn't fit quite so well when you did it in that way, unfortunately. But there's one thing I wanted to get onto, and something that people are interested in chat to do for us to talk about, is the super sampling stuff. So I need to get my head around this. I've not spent as much time with the Rift-S as I want to, and I probably will do over the next couple of days. But the super sampling. So Steve, Chris, how are you dealing with this? So basically what I'm doing is I've made Steam VR down to 1.0 now. I've got that down to 1.0, and then in the Oculus Tray Tool, super sampling at 1.4. There's a little bit of confusion with this, and I think you mentioned this on the Discord, Steve, in terms of how Oculus Tray Tools super samples whether 1.0 is the native resolution of the Rift-S, or if that is actually lower resolution, it's more CV1 resolution. So this is all a little bit confusing to me at the moment. I've not had a chance to dive into it. I don't know if either of you guys have. What do you think?
Well, I would say it's probably not worth until we know. Like, that was a rumor at the time. It was never fully verified that the Rift-S uses the same render target as the CV1. A dev, I think, had said it to Sebastian of MRTV, and then David Haney of Upload sort of corroborated it, in which that's when I started taking it serious. But I think we ignore it for the time being. But in terms of actual super sampling, though, the Oculus Tray Tool uses the old school of, I forget the correct term, but whereas Steam VR does a percentage. So 200% is just 200% more, not horizontal and vertically, but 200% more total area. Whereas Oculus Tray Tool does a multiplier, and it multiplies it to the horizontal and the vertical axis. So a 1.5 super sample would translate to 1.5 times 1.5, which is 2.25, which would equal 225%. So I think nothing changes. So if you've been super sampling on CV1, nothing changes going to the Rift-S. Try it at the same, because the drop to 80 hertz, just keep everything the same. You should have comparable performance, just have the benefits of the higher clarity of the new display. So I recommend everybody keep it simple, not worry about it, just keep everything the same. And if you haven't ever super sampled, then try it though.
Yeah, the reason I'm bringing this up is mainly for Elite Dangerous, because when I first went into Elite Dangerous, there were things that I had to change. I had to dial it in order to get the performance back up to where it was before. In spite of everything being exactly the same, I wasn't getting the same frame rate as I was in the CV1, so I did have to change a few things, and that's why, because everything goes through the Oculus pipeline, that's why I'm sort of making everything pretty much 1.0 and then controlling everything through Oculus Tray Tools. Except in the fact that in Elite Dangerous you have two options. You have a super sampling option, and then you also have VR HMD quality, which by manipulating these two things you can then get sort of a better appearance in the headset while also maintaining performance, and that takes a little bit of experimentation. Chris, I don't know if you got anything to add on this at all.
Yeah, I've never, I used to super sample a little bit, but yeah, my computer's just not good enough for that, so I need to get a new graphics card. I think just natively though, this looks fantastic. Like, it's a super big upgrade for me, so I'm happy with that. I gotta look into super sampling some lesser demanding titles for sure.
Yep. Okay, unless anybody has anything else on the Rift-S, let's go ahead and jump into the Quest. So,
can I just ask you guys real quick before we move off of the Rift-S? Just,
go ahead.
I've been noticing complaints and stuff. I was just curious if you guys had any of this weirdness that some other people are having in terms of the headset just going black and people having to restart their computers over. Some people having problems with the Oculus software, and then. Has anybody played any game where you're Creed or something, or a Contractors or something where you got your hands up? I was just wondering if you guys have noticed any of these complaints that you see out there. Of course, you never know if these complaints are actually legitimate or people kind of faking stuff too.
I don't think people are faking it that much. I think the complaints are real. When I was running setup, you're doing everything that you do on the PC, on the desktop, you're clicking whatever, and then at some point it says, okay, now put the headset on. At that point, my screens were black, it wasn't on, and I couldn't wake it up, and I kept putting my finger on the prox sensor trying to wake it up. I just restarted my computer and reran setup, and it's been perfectly fine ever since. So I think there is some truth to the displays not waking up, but it's probably just a software bug that they'll have squashed in a patch or two, is my guess.
Yeah,
Um,
I had a big pain because it kept being like, okay, you're ready to set up, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, yes, and I put it on and I'd have I've never seen this before, but those like three dots that keep showing up, and it was like, it said like continue in your headset, but I couldn't, so I like moved USB ports probably 10 times, and it kept being like, oh, now display port's not connected, but it's just so weird because once it finally got it, it was fine. It's been fine ever since. So whatever is happening with initial setup, like they got to fix some bugs in that, I think. But yeah, it's not too big a deal once it's fine. I just don't touch it. It's been good. We should also just mention how awesome Pass Through Plus is, though, because like I love that. I've been using Pass Through Plus to develop in Unity. I think it's great for that because I have Oculus Dash open, have my desktop kind of where my real monitors are, and I can actually see my keyboard and mouse, and they're perspective correct, exactly where they should be. So I'm like typing on the keyboard using my mouse, and then I can like run Unity, and it'll just suddenly I'll be in VR in the VR build of my game or whatever. So I think it's fantastic, and you can actually see your desktop now. Like it's clear enough to use as a virtual desktop, I think. So that's kind of a personal use case, but
yeah, I disagree with that. Honestly, I don't think it's quite clear enough to use as a desktop, from my experience. But I think it's good enough to sort out little problems that you're having if you need to see your desktop and you don't want to do like the virtual desktop on the Oculus Dash and stuff like that. It's good enough for that. But from all the reports that I was hearing about Pass Through Plus and even Pass Through on the Quest, I was expecting a little bit more, if I'm being honest. But it's good, and it's good enough, I think. Just very quickly, going back to some of the problems, there's one thing that I'm having with the Rift-S that's a little bit concerning, and it would really reassure me if you guys are having this as well. But there's one thing where, like, very occasionally, and it's literally happened about 5 times since I've had the Rift-S, it's for barely a second. It's not a second, it's like half a second, a fraction of a second. And it just sort of goes to that thing where it's like got the static screen where it will suddenly go to static, and then the game will come back in. And that has happened like 5 times. It's not a big issue or anything like that. It just makes me think that this could be like symptomatic of some kind of issue with my cabling or something like that with the Rift-S. I don't know if anybody's experienced that at all.
I think I have, but I haven't had the headset on when that happens. But what happens to me is I'll just like randomly pick up the headset and it'll blast like zzz from the speakers for like 2 seconds. Does that happen to you at all?
No, that one's not. No, so we're having a few different problems here.
So thank goodness I don't have it on my head when that happens, because maybe the screens are screwing up too. But like, yeah, it likes to blare like white noise randomly when I pick it up. I don't know. It's a little weird. It's a little, it needs to get polished a little bit.
I think they're still ironing things out. I'm hoping it's not like a cabling issue. That's my concern. Like it's a hardware issue. I'm hoping it's more like to do with the software. But
yeah.
Okay. Have any of you guys done the little trick where you use like a twisty tie for the cable that lots of people are recommending? They say it like makes the cable feel a lot better.
I haven't spent a lot of time doing a lot of, I guess, room scale stuff on the Rift-S. I've been mostly focused on just looking at the quality and the fit and the comfort. That I haven't, because I look at the tracking, it's good enough, and it's close to the Quest. So I've spent more time focusing on the Quest in terms of tracking and, well, I guess no cable, but yeah, I just haven't spent that time on the Rift-S. Okay, well, let's get into some Quest then. Before I say anything about it, I'll go ahead and send it to Anthony. We've all been talking more about the Rift-S. He hasn't had as much to say because he doesn't have one. So now, to you, just kind of what is your, I guess we'll start with high-level impressions before we jump into the weeds on anything specific. But so just kind of give us your high-level impressions of the Quest. Does it walk on water?
Pretty much, no. Man, I really like it. I really like it. Like when the first day that I had it, I guess it kind of also depends on the experiences that you've tried. And so people probably have varying opinions based on the little different games they played and also their background experience with PC VR games that maybe have been ported over and those kinds of things. Because the very first day, I think I tried like 5 different games, basically. 2 of them were not terribly impressive to me. but I've changed my mind on one of those. The other one I kind of still feel the same way. Then the second day I played a whole bunch other games that I had never tried before, and then I was like, oh my God, this is really special. I think this is a really incredible device right here for the money, everything that they put together. Would I have loved a Snapdragon 855 or like even an 845 Snapdragon? Absolutely, but then the cost is like $100 more. And so if you have the 64, the 128, you might be like 500 and 600, and then it's not really affordable. The $399.99, that is a magical price point. That's a price point that you see for like PlayStation 4 and Xbox One X, like when they were first coming out, stuff like that. And so I think it's the right decision ultimately from Oculus. The real key with me for the Quest is 6 DoF. Okay, it's hand presence. That is the difference. I think if the Oculus Go had the exact same hand presence that the Oculus Quest has, even with that lower end hardware and stuff, I think it would have been pretty magical as well. I think it really is the fact that you're in a place, you're in a space with the 6 DoF with your head and your hands. The other thing I'll say too is like ease of use is pretty spectacular from the standpoint that I could take my Quest right now and I could walk into a room I've never been in before, and within about 2 minutes I'm ready to go. You know, I can trace the thing out, I can touch my controller to the ground, bam, I'm in, I'm ready to go. That's pretty freaking incredible. A quick little downside that I kind of have in my overall impressions with the Quest is comfort. Like I feel like I've learned how to make it more comfortable than it was in the beginning, but I still can't say this is a tremendously comfortable headset. And one thing I've always said since receiving this Quest and taking it out of the box, I feel like it's a little bit smaller than those production. I would love to know this. Like Nate Mitchell, where are you? Is it a little bit smaller than the production units that we had at GDC? Because it seems like, honey, I shrunk the Quest. It seems like they put it in a little box and they said reduced by 15% or 20% or something. And then it's a little bit smaller. It just seems smaller to me. And so that might affect the comfort, because I felt like it was comfortable at GDC, but I had it for shorter periods of time. But that's kind of my overall gist on the Quest. An amazing product. I love it. I'm going to show it to tons of people. And I think success is absolutely inevitable for this device.
Okay. Gary, what's your thoughts on Quest? Does it walk on water?
Yeah, just briefly, like as an overview, I think it's it's incredible. It really is an incredible device. And when I've always been one of these people that's like a hardware kind of person. Back when I was like a teenager, the process of upgrading my PC was equally as enjoyable to actually trying all the software and actually diving deep into the games once I'd upgraded it. I was always interested into all these little differences that you could make on upgrading your PC and doing these kinds of things. When I look at the hardware that is in the Oculus Quest and you look at it, you just take a step back and look at it objectively in terms of what they're achieving with this device. I think it's incredible on both a hardware level and engineering level, but also going in there and seeing what these developers are doing on this. It's very limited in terms of processing power. This 2-year-old, mobile chip that they're working with here, and getting experiences that are comparable or in some cases preferable to other platforms which are relying on tethered experiences, PSVR or PC VR. I think it's absolutely incredible, and it's interesting to go into all of these little software, these games and these experiences that are on this device, and looking at all the little tricks, all the little shortcuts that these developers are taking in order to get these games running, which for the most part don't really impact gameplay or enjoyment. In fact, the fact that it's not tethered and that there is significant significantly lower friction enhances the experience. So, I mean, specifically, like Superhot, for example, we'll get onto a few games I know, but just very briefly, like Superhot, I would rather play Superhot on the Quest than I would on the PSVR. And there are numerous examples of that. And it's not like I'm a PSVR hater. I love my PSVR and I love everything that they've done on that. But when I consider playing games like Superhot or Beat Saber or even Moss, I would take Moss, all of those games, I would take all of them on the Quest over the PSVR. Not necessarily just for the fidelity of the headset or anything like that, or the ease of use, but the tracking of the controllers. It's one-to-one. It is absolutely one-to-one tracking that you are experiencing in 60 degrees of freedom with this standalone headset. There's so many things to say on this, but yeah, overall, I mean, first impressions were pretty good on this, and it's just improved throughout the week. The more I've used it, it's just improved. Absolutely fantastic.
Great.
All right,
Chris, I will go to you next. You know the question, does the Quest walk on water?
absolutely. But yeah, this was. Oh, I mean, obviously, overall first impressions, this thing is fantastic. I think it's exactly the device we needed. I don't know what we would have done without something like Quest. Like, I can't believe that they pulled it off and they got it out, and they got a bunch of them out too. There's no like production hiccups. It looks like it's all shelves everywhere. Like, I went to my Best Buy, there's probably like 15 of them in the store, so I was happy about that. I didn't know Best Buys didn't have Oculus stuff, because like my one in the middle of nowhere, Vermont, had all this Oculus stuff somehow. I couldn't believe that, but I can't believe what they did for $399. I can't believe what they're doing for the industry as a whole. Like, I imagine a lot of developers are going to be very happy, because I know everyone who I know has a Quest is buying a bunch of games, spending a bunch of money on the Oculus store. And a lot of these people have used my Rift or used VR before, mostly for me, because I show everyone VR all the time. But none of them have been complaining at all about it being like a downgrade in any way. A lot of my friends have been playing Vader Immortal. They love it. I've been playing Vader Immortal. I love it. So I think, it's really magical what they were able to do with this device. And, it is the sick stuff and just the freedom. I'm on vacation. I would have never brought anything with me here. Like, I would have maybe brought the Go and watched a YouTube video or something. I don't even know what I'd do on the Go. It's just not very gamer oriented. Whereas I have Quest here. I could go outside, go on the deck or the porch, something where there's enough space in this tiny cottage and play Beat Saber like I did last night. And it's just mind blowing that you can do that. So yeah, overall first impressions for me are like, this is fantastic. I think this is really a big deal, and everyone, getting VR for the first time, they all love it. I think, question for Steve and Gary is like, how was it better than you expected it to be in terms of like the experiences you'd get and how immersive it felt? I kind of want to know how you guys felt about that, because I already tried it at PAX and I was like, whoa, this is 95% maybe for Beat Saber, something like that.
Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, so for me, I guess I was expecting a lot from the Quest anyway. I really was. But it's made thing. I mean, like, I look at some of these experiences, and I've been watching VR 365 with Anthony this past week, so I know he's got something to say like about Robo Recall, and we could get onto that. And I don't entirely disagree with Anthony on that. But when I look at what this game is running on, and my overall expectation was things were going to look like the Oculus Go, because I suspected, even though this has got like a Snapdragon 835, I expected that part of that processing power was going to be utilized for the 6DOF, and I expected more would be utilized for that, and we would get like basically an Oculus Go kind of experience. This is really giving closer to like a PSVR experience than the Oculus Go. It really is in most ways. So I mean, I was expecting a lot from the Oculus Quest anyway, but also I think it's sort of exceeded my expectations in pretty much every way. And no small part of that is the friction. I think the friction, just today I've been trying, like my friends, like my son has got one of his friends round today, and just placing the Oculus Quest on him, he's into Job Simulator immediately and just playing around in Job Simulator. There's no friction, there's no hassle, and more importantly, there's no cables. This is probably the most important thing, because there's always a little bit of apprehension when you put in the headset on kids and they're not paying attention to the cable. You think there's a bit of a risk there. You know, they could either tangle it up or pull it out and damage it in some way, and this kind of stuff. There's none of that with the Quest. It's so easy, and overall, to your point, Chris, it exceeded my expectations, already high expectations. Yeah.
Okay, well, I think I lost connection there for a moment, but I assume you guys can hear me and everything fine now.
Yeah.
I'll give my thoughts. Of the four of us, I'm the one that's more bullish on the Quest, and I still am. Like, I think it's a good piece of hardware. I think it has lots of advantages to it. The reduction in friction is amazing. The ease of mind aspect about it. My daughter has played with my Quest far more than I have, and she's just playing Job Simulator endlessly. We're visiting some friends. They have a Quest as well. And my friend's daughter is, she'll just break away for 20 minutes and I'll hear the sounds of Job Simulator coming from the other room. And she's just going in and playing Job Simulator for 15, 20 minutes and coming right back out. So it's a different approach on VR. Now, everyone thinks that the Quest is a miracle, that it walks on water. I keep saying that over and over and over. I think part of that miracle is because we overshot what VR needed to be and what it took to have VR in 2016. Like, we did not need i7 processors and GTX 1080s to play Beat Saber, not that it was out in 2016. So part of why the Quest is so amazing for a lot of people is that it's distilling that PC experience to a degree down into a standalone piece of hardware. It's doing it with lower fidelity. It's doing it at lower frame rates. And the only thing I'll say is that we didn't need to have 90 hertz back in 2016. We could have ran Job Simulator or whatever game that's on the Quest. We could have run it on PC VR with significantly less hardware requirements. So really, the answer is somewhere in between. Like, it's coming from both sides. But still, the Quest is a really interesting product. It's a good product. I think I'm more aligned with the consumer that is more vested in the higher end experiences. I care more about things like Elite Dangerous or Project Cars 2, those types of experiences that won't come to Quest, that I don't foresee coming to Quest in any capacity. And it's not just a graphic horror type perspective. So it's a great augment. I could see myself playing Beat Saber, reaching for it on the Quest, more than PC VR. I still have a hang up there a little bit. I'm not sure, but I see the benefits of it. And I recognize that I am a niche within a niche consumer. So for a lot of people out there, the Quest is a good piece of hardware. I am still concerned on what its identity is from where it is right now. If you were to jump back in time to our episode last year, we would have been like, oh, the Go is amazing. The Go is really cool. We can take VR on the go, and we can do this, and we can play games, and we can play Blaze Rush, and it's awesome. And then you 9 months after that, and our Go's are for the most part collecting dust. Will something similar happen with the Quest? I don't know. I'm not saying something similar will happen, but I do think that it has an identity right now, but Oculus needs to continue developing that identity and making sure that it's going to continue to be supported. I would like for it to do something to have legs on its own and not just be a constant distilled down PC VR portable gaming machine that for the most part it is right now. There's just a lot of PC stuff that's on Quest. Like, what is exclusive to Quest? Will it just kind of branch out and command its own sort of market? So those are just some thoughts that I have. But moving on into some of the weeds, do you guys want to just jump in some games now, or do you want to talk any specifics on the hardware? What do you guys
can I say one thing
ahead.
real quick? I had an interesting topic brought up to me by Scion VR, and like, let's say you hate the Quest, like you have no interest in the Quest, and there's people out there like that. They don't care. Like, they're PC VR gamers. They're in their man cave. they want to play Stormland, they want to play Asgard's Wrath, they want to push it to the highest level they can, and the Quest is like why am I going to bother with that? So there's people that have that attitude. And Steve, I might even argue that you're almost in that category, maybe not quite. But one of the questions Scion has is like, if the Quest is this runaway hit that some of us think it may be, what does this do to PC VR gaming? There's a dark side here, because you think about all the developers, think about the teams, think about like iLlusions, for example. They just brought Space Pirate Trainer over to the Quest. You got these smaller teams that are doing things, and now they're distracted. Well, you could say they're distracted by the Quest, and so they might have to take 4 of their 9 programmers and say, okay, you 4 guys, you go in this room and prototype to see if you can get this up and running on the Quest. So now you have 4 less programmers that are patching whatever the PC VR game is. So like if you were a hater and just you don't care about the Quest at all, and then now it's like insult added to injury or whatever, injury added to insult or whatever, because now not only do you have this like distraction going on, but like devs are being distracted and teams are shifting resources. Any concern about that? Like Steve specifically, you don't seem to be that super hyped on the Quest, and you're kind of like a PC VR guy. Do you worry about that at all?
No, I mean, PC just in general is still a good enough market. Like, I don't think people are worried that the next, I don't know, Call of Duty is having resources. Right, like there's a pretty big divide between PS4 and a good
people
PC.
Complain about that too, though.
No, everyone will complain, but the point is Call of Duty. I'm using that as an example. I don't know. I don't play it on PC, but I'm assuming that game's still on PC. Like The Witcher or the last Assassin's Creed. Like these games are being developed for consoles and for PC. So if the Quest is a console, then I don't see that as a problem. Now, I'm not 100% convinced that the Quest is a console. Like the Quest to PC VR isn't the same as what the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox is to PC gaming. Like there's still a divide. There's still a difference there. It's more than that. And I think the Quest is somewhere between a portable and a console. It doesn't meet all the definitions for just a pure portable, even though it is standalone and portable. It doesn't really quite feel like a fully fledged console in and of itself either, due to the hardware limitations and just the not just the fidelity but the scope of the games. So it's somewhere in between. I don't see it as a problem. I think there's opportunity for it to exist, because I don't think Frontier Dev, whenever they make another Elite Dangerous, is going to even blink at the Quest. So I think we'll have Quest type experiences, and you'll have higher end PC VR experiences, and then you'll have some overlap, and I think that'll continue, and that'll be fine.
It's an opportunity in my mind. It's an opportunity for developers, because we're seeing like developers like Superhot, and let's not forget, like the Superhot developers have confirmed that they have sold more of the VR version of their game than the flat version of their game, and now it's coming over to Quest. It's a big opportunity for them. But also, if they are, you've got developers that are assigning resources to the Quest, then that's okay. If they are designing a game for the PC but then assigning certain resources to the Quest, then that's okay too, in my mind, because you want developers to succeed no matter what their path. And I only hope that PC VR won't be left behind entirely, and I guess that's the danger that you're alluding to there, Anthony, that people will just go entirely over to the Oculus Quest. But there's a couple of points on this as well. Like with the Oculus Quest and like PC VR in general, so you have the higher end stuff that is still going to continue coming out on that platform, and also I guess PSVR to a lesser extent. But one of the concerns is that I've lost my train of thought. I did have it, but I've lost my train of thought. Go ahead, somebody else.
you don't have it if you lost it.
Yeah.
I'll just say, like, to kind of latch on to something I said last week. I still don't think the content is there. So the Quest is not, we're not going to wake up a year from now, I don't think, crystal ball and all that. I don't think we're going to be looking at 12 million Quests sold or 15 million Quests sold. I'm not convinced even that it's going to chart pound for pound with PlayStation VR. A year from now, I'm not convinced necessarily the Quest will have sold what the PlayStation VR sold in 1 year. So maybe it will, maybe it won't. I'm just saying I don't know. A lot of people just assume that it's just going to be a runaway train and that it's magic and it's going to do amazing. I don't make that assumption. I assume that it's going to be successful within the breadth of the VR market. Maybe it'll overtake the PSVR, maybe it won't, but I think it's going to be successful within the confines of VR, and I don't necessarily think it's going to radically change. I don't think we're going to take many steps towards VR ubiquity where tons of people on the outside are now jumping into VR and loving it. I think some affluent people will buy a Quest, they'll play with it for a month or two, and then they'll kind of move on. I think this is not VR's iPhone moment, and I think I said that last week, and I don't feel that's the case. I think there's more
Downer.
maybe I am a
I
Debbie
agree.
Downer, but I'm just not. It's not the iPhone moment yet.
No.
Hey, can I ask? Oh, go ahead, Gary.
Well, no, just quick. I did. Go ahead, Anthony. I'll come back to my point that I did remember, but go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to ask a question to Chris, and this is a question I have in general, but I'll go ahead and ask it to Chris. Is there any worry, Chris, that the Quest? One thing I do worry about the Quest is like this identity, and there being games on the Quest that you can't get anywhere else, and so even if it's just for a short period of time. Because then it's like, oh, that's a Quest game, kind of like what we have with Vader Immortal. And basically, but it's like all the games that we know about, they're all coming to Rift. Like Journey of the Gods is coming to Rift, Vader Immortal, all these things are coming to Rift, right? Eventually. Do you think Oculus needs to take some of their best developers, 4A Games, Tripwire Interactive, NXL Entertainment, well, now they're Microsoft, but like some of the people that they've worked with that are high-end developers and say, you know what, we need you guys to make a killer Quest game. All like don't hold back, let's put $10 million into a Quest game. Are we going to see that? Because I was hoping the same thing with the Go, and they didn't do that with the Go. I got to feel like this is their baby, though. They got to do that, right?
I think they have to, but it's a hard thing because you could either have devs do one thing where they'll be like, okay, make a Quest game, we'll have it be exclusive for a few months and then it'll go on Rift, or probably the better thing for Quest itself, but not necessarily the entire Oculus platform, would be, let's make a game that relies on it's entirely wireless, there's no cable, full spinning around all the time. Like there's a lot of gameplay mechanics that you could have on a Quest that you just can't get on PC VR. But I don't think they'll ever do anything like that. I think it'll probably still keep being like Journey of the Gods or Vader Immortal, where it's like it's exclusive for a short period of time. I think that's fine. It's just like games like PSVR games that eventually come to PC VR, like Skyrim. Like for a while, that was what was selling PSVR. So I think it'll be okay, but man, they really need to have really good, consistent lineup of games. Otherwise, yeah, the Go sucked. I hated that because I was like, hey, friends, get the Go. And then 2 friends got the Go and we got mini golf. And then we're like, hey, this is fun. Is there any new games coming out? Nope. There's nothing on the Go. And it's
you
really
feel like
depressing.
you owe them money now, don't you?
I know. I'm like, sorry, guys. We should have waited for Quest. Rush the gun on that one. But
so I think when I think of VR as a whole, like I feel like that there hasn't been necessarily a killer game. So we're focused on hardware and what the hardware can do, but I think just forget all hardware aspects. It's just what makes a killer game. I think Beat Saber is probably the closest thing that we have. It's simple, but something about it is effective. I don't think a game like a company like Tripwire, use them as example because you did. I don't think they can just say, here's $50 million and we're just going to brute force our way to good VR game design and we're going to have a killer game that everybody loves. I don't. Resources are a problem. It's definitely a thing, but I still feel like the market hasn't fully figured out what VR's identity is as a whole and how to make people feel compelled to want to experience VR. And I think that's bigger than this whole conversation on the Quest specifically. Like the Quest may better enable good ideas once there's a good idea, but I think the Quest in and of itself doesn't create the good idea necessarily. I think that's got to come artistically or just in terms of thought or whatever. Like someone's got to have those ideas regardless of the hardware for the most part.
Yeah, but the super exciting thing is more than any other VR, device that's ever came out is that I think it's really easy if you demo a Quest to somebody, you can be like, "Hey, this is $399, no computer, nothing, just go get it." And a lot of people do go get it. Like I've looked at the Quest subreddit. Of course, this is a bunch of examples of people, who are really hyped about Quest and like, probably their friends are too. But the fact is there's people who bring their Quest to work. They're like, "Hey, look at this." And then, after lunch, some guy has a Quest now, and like it seems to be spreading really quick. I saw on Amazon, it said like, Quest sold out for like 2 months. Like if you buy one now, it'll come in like 1 to 2 months. So it's also been like top selling near the Switch, sometimes beating the Switch like day by day, just on like the top selling list. So I think you're right. It's not really the full iPhone moment, but it's like the iPod Touch moment. It's as close as we'll get for I think years to have this opportunity. So I get what you're all saying, but I don't know. I'm pretty excited.
And we need to define like in my mind, we need to define what is success. Like Chris, success to you for the Quest or for VR may be just getting 10 million people playing a game like Beat Saber. And for me, I'm a little more selfish. Like success for me is Capcom saying, "Hey, we need to make Resident Evil 8 in VR, no questions asked." Like I don't think when they make RE8, I don't believe that they will or won't do it in VR necessarily. So for success for me is I want every developer making a major game to strongly consider and in most cases go down a VR path, whereas that might not be what the market even wants. Like we may just be trying to figure out how to get young 10-year-olds to be excited about VR or, make them put the iPad down and pick up the Quest instead. There's different definitions of success and my mind is changing. Like I've kind of thought all along these last year or so that success for VR meant the same thing to me as it does to you, as it does to Gary and so on. And maybe that's not the case. Like Quest can be successful in its own way, and I don't have to love its success. It may not fit what I want as a consumer, but it may still be kicking ass and taking names.
Just as a sort of side note to that, I agree with Steve in some ways because I don't see this as being the iPhone moment, and this is something I was thinking about earlier on in the week. Like this is, I think at the end of the day, when people look at people playing the Quest, they are still standing there with a brick on their face, and that is going to turn people off. It's still not going to be mainstream based on that. I think 5-10 years down the line, when we've got better form factors where they are sort of more closer to glasses or something like that, that's really the iPhone moment. For me, and that is a long way off. I think it's a long way off, but the Quest is a significant step in the right direction by it being standalone. The point that I lost my train of thought earlier on, but the point I wanted to get to was, see, Oculus are now, their priority, I think most people would say, is the Quest, and they see that as being the more mainstream product of the two the two main ones, the Rift-S and the Quest, and rightfully so. I think the Quest will be the most mainstream product of those, but their focus with this being like standalone, do you think like it's so supposing like say 3 years down the line, Oculus completely stop making PC VR headsets, which is not beyond the realms of possibility. I think it's actually quite possible. And they only become a standalone VR headset company. Is that the end of the world? See, for me, having tried the Quest and having tried the Rift-S as much as I like the Rift-S, I'm far more excited by the future possibilities of iterations on the Quest than I am about iterations on the Rift-S with what they are showing me here. So I'm okay with Oculus becoming a standalone VR headset company going down the line. As much as I know people will hate that, I can look elsewhere for my PC high-end VR headsets. I'll look to Valve, I'll look to LG and all these other companies that hopefully are still working behind the scenes on this stuff. But if Oculus only want to focus their business on standalone VR, I'm not actually entirely against that anymore. And I know that's probably not a popular opinion to have, but has anybody got any thoughts on that at all?
I don't know that I would be okay with it like you are. I think my initial thought are two things. One is I still like the idea, and we don't know to what degree it's used, but I like the idea of big dollars being behind consumer VR. And I know that would be the case with standalone, but I still like the idea of big dollars being behind relative high-end VR, which would be what I would say the Rift-S is, compared to PSVR, Quest, and everything. So that I wouldn't necessarily love. And then also there is a games aspect. Like Oculus so far has done a lot in the software front, and we still have Stormland and Asgard's Wrath coming. And I don't know that I just want that kind of stuff to go away in a high end sense. So, but I take your point, and I see what you're saying, and in a sort of with a different train of thought in a bigger picture sense, it probably would be okay if so long that there was someone else to carry that mantle. The big concern is if Valve, we don't ever get anything past the index and software trails off and things just kind of putter out. It doesn't end. There is no whoop, VR is dead moment or anything like that, but it just kind of putters and slowly putters away. I think Oculus having that Facebook money is a big chance at keeping that going, and I'd hate to see that go away.
I don't think Oculus is gonna pull the plug like this, though. Even if they know that standalone is where their bread's going to be buttered going forward, I think first of all, they've already done the PC thing, and it's going to be very, like, even if they wanted to completely back away from it, that's going to be a difficult thing for them to do. But I could also see them wanting to have the PC element there for pushing VR as far as it can be pushed with just brute force type stuff, knowing that a lot of that investment will trickle back to whatever standalone they are going to have. And so I feel like they're like the biggest fear that I think we really have with Oculus from a PC VR standpoint is they're not going to be throwing the crazy money at Respawn and people like that. That's not going to happen. But I don't think they're just going to walk away from PC VR, because I don't think they just want to give it to Valve and give it to anybody else and not have some kind of say in the super high end market. But standalone that's going to be their focus. Like, we just have to come to grips with that.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with what you guys said. Like, it's definitely inevitable. At the same time, I think you're right that they're not going to just back away from PC. They've invested too much. Oculus has been there since the very beginning, with the dev kit one. They're the ones who really even started this. So that would be like the worst thing ever if they left, because they really, without them, there wouldn't be a PC VR market, I don't think. So they have a rightful ownership over some of that, at least.
But is that Oculus the same Oculus now? Because it's not.
No,
yeah, those guys
Facebook.
are gone.
They're long. Everyone's gone. John Carmack, though, he predicted Quest back in 2012. He's like, this is going to be wireless. It's going to have, I don't know. He's crazy. Thank goodness he's still at Oculus.
Hey, but he was all about mobile, though, and
yeah.
that's where it's going. I really believe it.
Yep, totally. He's known the whole time. He's been like, I'm working on mobile from the start. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's talk about some games. So, Chris, let me just send it right back to you. Just choose a game you want to talk about. We have a long list. I don't know that we're going to get through all of them. We were very fortunate between titles that we already had, and we got some keys from developers, and we purchased some stuff. So I would say we got a good, if I just had to throw a percentage out there, we have maybe 80% of the launch library, something like that. We were able to, fortunate enough to be able to try a lot of the launch games. So just kind of choose one. What's been your favorite Quest game? Talk about it.
All right. So for me, it was definitely Vader Immortal, because I've never played this game before, and you know, I have done the like ILM X Lab experience at Orlando, Florida, where it's like the Void experience where you have a rift on your head and you know you have a leap motion, and they do like heating and all this stuff to make it feel next level. You could tell it was kind of like a sequel to that, minus all the real world things and all the, you know, real world effects and things like that. But I think it really got the essence of what a good Star Wars game in VR should be. And to me, it was just really good. The like, this isn't too much of a spoiler. I think you can tell you get a lightsaber at some point, but just that felt really good to me. And the fact that there's some replayability there is really awesome. It's only $10, and I'm really excited for the future stories of this, because I've always wanted VR to feel like a movie. And this is really like the highest production value like VR movie we've had, where you're really part of the story. You're talking to characters. I mean, you're not actually talking, but they're talking to you at least. And at the same time, you know, you're walking around the Star Wars universe. So to me, that was really a standout, especially since it's only $10. I think it's a no-brainer for anyone to get. And I know a lot of my friends who picked up a Quest like Star Wars, so they bought this as well. And I think it gives very good first impressions of the device as well, since it's one of the best probably graphically. Obviously, you can tell all the tricks if you really analyze everything, if you analyze every frame or every location. But just overall, overarching feelings on that is that I think it looked fantastic. It played really well, and it also is really just a good demonstration of standalone, because you can really spin around when you're using the lightsaber, and it's super fun. So yeah, I like that game. I think that game is like a no-brainer, instant recommend, especially at $10. So that's the one I'll talk about, I guess.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna be a different person again. Like, unpopular opinion is me. I didn't love Vader Immortal, and I totally accept and own the fact that I'm in the minority here. Like, I'm not suggesting that everyone that loves it is stupid or anything. I'm the different one, but I didn't love it. Like, it felt. It felt shallow to me. Like, what I was seeing visually was good, but I couldn't escape the feeling that if it didn't come with a Star Wars skin, that instead this was generic Space Trooper A and generic Spaceship B landing on generic Planet C in space, like we wouldn't care about this experience at all. I think it's merely the fact that it's Star Wars is carrying what this experience is. I've seen some people compare it to, in a way, to Lone Echo, and I get that, because you're doing a lot. Like when you open the doors, you're it's sort of like it's a little bit like a tech demo. But that being said, as much as I wasn't in love with it, it wasn't a horrible experience. It wasn't necessarily bad, and it is Star Wars. Like, one of the coolest things that they've done in this is I think they've done the character models really, really well, given that you're on the mobile hardware. Like, when you come face to face with Vader, which, by the way, like, was he motion capped by Shaquille O'Neal? Like, why is Darth Vader so big? Like, I've never, like, he is probably, and I kid you not, 7 foot tall. Like, I never thought Darth Vader was that big. But like, when you come face to face with Vader, and I forget his admiral that's reporting to him, they look good. I think it's $10. I know it's $10. I don't think it's $10. It's $10. So it's something that I think I'm comfortable recommending everybody play when they pick up their Quest. Like, it's Star Wars. Check it out. Like, you only have a 10 spot to lose if you don't love the experience like me. But then again, I'm in the minority, and most people will probably love it anyway. So I didn't love it, but I still recommend it. It's kind of a weird thing. Like I didn't love it, but I recommend it. Like, if it was $40 or something, I'd say hell no. But it being only $10, and because it's Star Wars, I think everyone that has a Quest needs to experience it.
I mean, that's the only reason I recommend it so strongly, is because it's Star Wars. I agree. If it was a generic game, I wouldn't recommend this at all. But just being in the world that you've known for so long, I think, is the coolest thing.
Yeah, and for me, it was exactly the same. It's like, it's not like being in a Star Wars movie. It's like being like a spin-off to a Star Wars movie, and that's the difference. And the fact it is Star Wars, when I've grown up watching these movies, and this is the closest I've ever got to being in one of those films, and that's the difference. And I think $10 is perfectly fine for this. I think it's great. It looks fantastic, and to what Chris was alluding to, like some of the tricks that they're using. Some of the textures and stuff like that don't look fantastic if you look closely, but the character models, which is where your focus is, they really do look good. And I thought this was, like, from start to finish, I played through it in one sitting, and I thought it was fantastic. And I've grown up being a huge Star Wars fan, and that probably plays a significant part in the amount that I love this. I will say, going back to Steve's point, if this was generic space adventure for 45 minutes, then it wouldn't impress me anywhere close to the amount it does. But it is Star Wars, and that's what it's got going for it.
One of the things I don't like, I'll agree with Steve a little bit on some of this, is like, I don't think the actual story that was going on here was that great or anything. And then also the very beginning of the experience, because I thought about putting my kids in it, and I thought, see, my kids, like, a lot of times if I put them into something, if it doesn't grab their attention in the first 2 minutes, they're disinterested and they want to get out of it. And I was kind of thinking, I haven't put them in it yet, but I'm thinking that the very opening sequence, like, they might get kind of bored of that. I kind of wish you were walking down, a Death Star hallway, like right at the very beginning, and just like being in that world would be the start of it. And then some other things I'll say, like, I recommend it. It's good. You hold a lightsaber, you turn the lightsaber on, it sounds freaking perfect. You turn the lightsaber off, like the audio part of that, absolutely nailed it. Just perfect with that. Free locomotion works pretty good. I wish there was a little bit more exploring, but it's kind of a short experience as far as that goes. But one of the downers of this thing is they used every trick in the book. Like, all the smoke and mirrors tricks you could ever possibly use on the Quest, they used it in the very first game that they've made, like dark backgrounds. By having these super dark backgrounds, they could just have blackness in certain areas. They don't have to put any textures there. And then they can put a little red button here, a little blue button there, and it's just on a black background. And when you're not paying attention, it all looks okay. If you look at it, you're like, oh, I see what you're doing here, smoke and mirrors. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors that are going on in this.
But that's sorry, yeah. Anthony. Yeah, just on that point, because I don't think that's a bad thing. That's developers being intelligent, working with the platform that they're working with, in order to get the best possible experience. I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing. I think that's a good thing overall. But
it's not a bad thing, but it's just, this is the very first game. We can't do this for, like, every game can't be in the dark. Every game can't have someone's mouth hidden. Like, we're going to have to get these are the crutches that we use in the beginning. You think about something, what is a perfect example here? Like a game like Static on PlayStation VR, where your hands are in this box and you're manipulating a controller. Absolutely freaking brilliant, right? I mean, just a brilliant concept. They took all the worst aspects of PlayStation VR and turned them into a strength. The problem is, you can only really do that once. Like, other games can't come along and do the same thing, because then you immediately know, oh, here's the old static trick again. Everybody's using the static trick. And so one of the worries I have, though, in relationship to like Vader Immortal and these high production values, is everybody's going to go with these very dark backgrounds and faces covered, so you see no lip sync. And if I keep seeing that over and over again, I'm gonna get pissed a bit, and so I don't know. Maybe Quest 2 will solve that.
Well, that's how I feel about just a lot of people so focused on hand controls. Like, oh, I could pick a vase up. Like, what you're describing right there is exactly how I feel about this. The radical focus on, I can fiddle with every object on the shelf in every environment. I'm like, I'm past that. Like, we've seen that trick. Let's get some compelling content. But moving on, we've all talked about Vader. Gary, I'll go to you next. Pick a title, because like I said, we have probably 20 titles on here, and there's no way we're going to be able to jump into all of them. So you go ahead and pick one.
Okay, so I'll go for Journey of the Gods, because I really like this one too. This was the game, I think, that who was it who said that this is like the Zelda? There was like
Nate Mitchell.
I think
Nate Mitchell, yeah. Okay. And you know, that comparison is impossible to miss in this game. When you look down at your body in this game, you appear to be like Link out of Zelda. Your hands and everything and what you're wearing just looks like it's got that kind of aesthetic. And it's specifically it's the latest game that's on the Switch. It's got that kind of aesthetic to how you look. The world itself reminds me in some ways of like Windlands, and it's sort of low poly and stylized in that way, which works really well with the Oculus Quest anyway. And so playing through this, see, I want sort of a little bit deeper experiences with some of this stuff. And I think this game is giving me one of those, but I think there's also other ones too that I can point to. So, yeah, Journey of the Gods, it's like a RPG game, and you play through and you can upgrade your weapons that you have. But it works so well, it's fluid, and it looks pretty good. You know, it's basic, it's polygonal in the way that Windlands is, but I'll go back to the fact that when you consider what this is running on, I think it's incredibly impressive. One thing I didn't mention overall with the Oculus Quest that I wanted to get to as well is occasional there are sort of frame drops now and again in certain titles. Robo Recall is a big one. You do get frame drops in that, and in this one not so much, but there is occasionally where the scene's busy and stuff like that. You do get some frame hitches, which I don't, you know, when I look at it from the outside, I sort of fully expect when I look at the hardware that this is running on. But it's only a surprise because we hear from Oculus going back 6 months how they are so focused on getting all these games dialed in to run perfectly on this device. And when I see frame hitches, that sort of contradicts that in some ways. It doesn't ruin anything, and I guess, you know, you just come to expect this kind of stuff when you're playing games like this on a mobile platform. But for Journey of the Gods, the game itself, I was really impressed. I've played just over an hour of it. I've played through the first couple of missions, and, you know, I've upgraded my crossbow, done various things, but I'm looking forward to playing the full, continuing to play it. I think it's around about 4 or 5 hours long. My only concern would be that it could get a little bit repetitive. You know, the gameplay doesn't change up too much, but hopefully, you know, they've got a few surprises in there for me. So, yeah, Journey of the Gods was one of my standouts, really.
So I'll jump in. Journey of the Gods is probably my standout. Like, it's been my favorite game and experience on the Quest so far. I talk a lot and I repeat myself to hammer home a point probably, but I've talked about scope of a game, and this Journey of the Gods is what I mean. Journey of the Gods is how you can have a deeper scoped game, but not require a 2080 Ti. Like the graphics are simple. It reminds me a lot, feeling wise, of Windlands, but the game itself has some complexity to it. It's particularly for a VR game. Like there's large boss battles that give you scale. You have a shield, you have a sword, you can switch to a crossbow, you can change to a god, a little bit like Asgard's Wrath. I think I saw someone in chat mention that. You can change to a god, then the world shrinks down and you manipulate the tiny world as a large god. Like it's got a lot of a lot of layers of complexity to it, again, for a VR game. And this is what I want out of VR. I want now Journey of the Gods. I think you mentioned, Gary, is only 4 to 5 hours long. I wasn't sure myself how long it was, but I want a game like Journey of the Gods that's 40 hours long or 30 hours that kind of mirrors a Final Fantasy. It doesn't have to look gorgeous and super detailed like Square Enix likes to do it, but just kind of have the core gameplay, do it with this really stripped down cartoony Windlands type look. And then I think you got an opportunity for critical success. this game is good, and I think is it $30. We didn't list all the prices like we normally do here, but I think it's $30. Again, 4 to 5 hours, so you have to weigh your value to time spent proposition. But the quality of gameplay, I enjoyed myself with this a lot. I'm going to recommend it if you have any interest in the slightest in a RPG-ish, built for VR, RPG-ish, Zelda-esque feeling title. I think it's delivered on that pretty well.
The first time I played Journey of the Gods, I actually had a really bad opinion of it, and I just played it briefly. I only had like 25 minutes or whatever. I think I was about to start an episode of my show, and I'm like, oh, I got like 25 minutes. Let me jump into Journey of the Gods and just kind of see what it looks like. And when I first got in there, I will admit, I was disappointed. I really was, because when I was looking at the environment, like just the grass and the mountains and the trees and everything, I was like just looking around at everything, and I was like, this looks like Oculus Go to me. Like, why are the colors so incredibly muted? Why are the characters like not even connected bodies? Like, they're just little shapes. And I understand that's kind of the art aesthetic they're working with here. And then the muted colors are all part of that. And then the characters, like when they talk, the little Peanuts kind of voice overs that they have. It's like, where's the real voice work here? So it sounds super negative. Like I'm like really negative of Journey of the Gods. I just played it yesterday. I actually played the demo of it because I wiped my account and put a different account on my Quest. It's a whole nother ball game there. But I tried the demo for Journey of the Gods and played through the entire demo, and the first time I didn't get to the first boss monster, that rises up and you're fighting a giant boss and you're like running away from it and dodging. And it was that moment where I realized, oh, okay, this is a real deal VR game. When you're caught up in battle and you're dodging giant fireballs coming at you or whatever they are, and you're like moving and you're trying to see, when can I get my shot off, and am I aiming my shot in the right way? All of the graphics and all that stuff just fades away. And now you're in a VR game and you're having an experience. And so I see what people like about Journey of the Gods, but I'm still very, very early in it. Price to like value and everything, probably not the greatest, but like if you're just jumping on the Quest and you want a meaty game, it's a pretty solid game to roll with.
Yeah, I did. This sucks because I really want to play this, but I'm always like, I want a lot of time to play the full thing, or like at least be able to play a couple hours of it. So I did the full demo at PAX East. I also did the full demo again here just to get a feel for it and see if it's how I remembered. I agree. I think they should have done more with making some vibrant colors to show off the OLED, because it's a little bit too muted for me in that sense. But I do love how just all the gameplay elements I think are really well done with this. And my favorite thing is how you feel the air resistance when you swing the sword. I think that's just like a really nice touch. So it's not just like you're swinging your arm back and forth super fast and killing things instantly. Like you actually have to do full swings, which is nice. The crossbow feels really good as well. So I think, like all you guys said, I think it's a really good game to play if you like RPGs. And I want to dedicate some time to playing the whole thing soon, because I think, it's probably even more fun once you start to get to upgrade your things and go on some quests and missions and stuff like that.
Okay. I'll pick a title next, and I'm going to pick a game most of us have played before, and that's Moss. Moss is a game that it's third person, so it's a jump from a lot of what the Quest is going to focus on, first person and head presence, whereas Moss is going to be, you use the touch controllers and you're navigating a third person title. So Moss, I think, works surprisingly well on the Quest. I wasn't anticipating it to work as well as it did, and I think it's a really I like the game a lot. I don't like. I'm going to recommend it. Like I don't know if any of you guys have played it on the Quest yet, but I really like this game as a whole, just in general, regardless of what platform you play it on. But I like the idea of a game like this being on Quest for the portable aspect of it. Like if you play it on the Rift, it's going to look better. If you play it on PlayStation VR, it's going to look a little better, even though the display is a lower resolution. If you play it on your Quest, you get to take it with you, and that's the big selling point of the Quest, the big advantage of the Quest. So if you can have the bulk of the experience but have it portable, then I think that makes a lot of sense. So I played Moss. Unfortunately, I did not get to the new level. So with Quest, Moss Polyarch has made an exclusive level for the Quest version, and I think they're going to release it to the other platforms in a period of time. A month maybe. Like I forget the time delay there. So I haven't been able to check out the new level, but I like Moss quite a bit. And in fact, I also have a key to give away. I'll wait about 5 minutes so that everyone in chat has a chance to get the Oculus Quest key redemption page pulled up or whatever, and then I'm going to drop the key into there. So that comes courtesy of Polyarch and Moss, and check the game out.
Yeah, Moss is one of the games that I wanted to get to at least. And yeah, I think it's pretty fantastic what they've yet again they've achieved on this. There are some differences. So like when I see in terms of graphical fidelity, you've got lower reflections, the shadows and the lighting and stuff like that. But for the most part, that really doesn't matter, and the game looks fantastic in the Quest. And this is going back to like one of the ones where if I was to compare it to a PSVR version, this is the format I'd prefer to play Moss on. I would prefer to play it on the Quest. The same with Superhot rather than PSVR. And I suppose Moss is one of the only ones that I would prefer to play on the Quest, which doesn't use the Move controllers on PSVR. Because that's my main turn-off with PSVR. A lot of these titles that I will recommend on the Quest version over the PSVR is things like Superhot, which use the motion controllers. And that's for the simple reason that the motion controllers are better on the Quest. They just are. They work better, they respond better. And that I would prefer to play games in that format. Moss used the DualShock on the PSVR, and it worked really well on that. But I felt like it was a slightly lower resolution on the PSVR than it was on the Quest, and maybe I need to do like an A/B comparison between the two. But overall, I think it played great, and the interactions, the motion controller interactions worked really well. I only played around 20 minutes of Moss on the Quest just to sort of do this comparison. But Moss is absolutely, definitely worth picking up on the Quest.
Yeah, I played maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours of Moss, and this is exciting for me because I've never actually played Moss on any other platform before. I finally got to try it out on Quest. So I was just in the living room. I was like, man, I'm sick of playing all these standing room scale games because I'm getting tired. I just want a game where I can sit down and have fun. And the great thing about Moss is, you can just recenter your position when you're in a chair and you're good to go. So I think that's amazing that there's just a game like this out on Quest in the launch lineup, because I think it needed something like this just so you can relax and have fun. I put on some high quality headphones so I could hear some sound a little bit better and just zen'd out in Moss for a while. And I think it's a fantastic game. The animations on this game for me are stunning because I haven't actually ever played it before. But I think the great thing is, even though the graphics are a little bit less nice than other platforms, it doesn't sacrifice on the animation or the storytelling at all. So yeah, I think whoever did the animations on Quill that's really the main amazing thing to me. So yeah, this is a must play game if you want any game to zen, chill out, or just have some sort of gamepad game where you can sit and enjoy it. So I was happy that this exists, and I finally got to play it. It's been so long.
I haven't tried it yet, unfortunately. But the game I do want to talk about, BOGO. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Okay. The game I want to talk about is Space Pirate Trainer. And so a Space Pirate Trainer is a game we know very well. We've had this game forever, since 2016. It's one of the original VR games that kind of launched with the Vive right at the beginning. In fact, I think I bought this game in April of 2016, and I was playing it every day when I first got my Vive. And it was such a game changer for me just because I felt like, oh my God, I'm like at Disneyland or something. I felt like I was going on a Disneyland ride. I mean, I don't know why that game is just being in that experience. I think it was just because it was so early being in VR, and it just blew me away. But the thing that I love about Space Pirate Trainer on the Quest is I feel like it's basically the same freaking game. And it's not just that it looks the same, it feels the same. And I can't stress how important that is. When you're shooting your guns, when you have your blasters and you're shooting them, and the rumble, like the shot, the bullets are coming out of your guns, and every bullet that you shoot, it's like a slight little rumble that hits your controllers. And it's the same way when you're playing it like on an Oculus Rift or an HTC Vive or whatever. It feels exactly the same. And so I was playing this on my Quest, and I was just like, wow, they freaking nailed this. It works so good. Like I always talk about percentages. How much of the original Space Pirate Trainer did they squeeze onto the Quest, like a squeezed orange, to get that juice out of it? And I would say like 86, 87% of the experience shines through. The backgrounds maybe aren't as black, and there's not, some details are missing here and there. But for the most part, you are playing Space Pirate Trainer. The sound, one of the things I've noticed with all these Quest games is the sound is virtually identical, which I guess it should be, right? It should pretty much be identical. But there's something, the sound is a big part of the game. The rumble is a big part of the game. The tracking and the 6DoF and everything, like we always just think graphics. No, there's the sound and the rumble. Like when all of that combines, and then the graphics are just minorly watered down, I think the whole experience is there. And so Space Pirate Trainer, it's a basic game, but I believe it's $15, I think, on the Quest. And there's not that many cheap games, or relatively cheap. And I would say this is an absolutely solid game. And somebody like Gaming Science Teacher that has never, ever played something like Space Pirate Trainer, she can play this, and she's basically getting the real experience, and you get to move around, you don't have the cord and stuff, so you can dodge those lasers coming in. So you could do the Mat Pat. So it's pretty good.
So I think it's 110% of the experience from PC, because you actually get more, in my mind, with Space Pirate Trainer on the Quest, because you don't have a cable and because you're completely free and wireless. And this is a type of game that really leverages that aspect, because you can bend down, you can dodge, you can do the Neo in the Matrix thing. You can do all of that without the thought of the cable just kind of being there in the back of your mind. Just when you know that cable isn't there, it's more. So I actually think Quest would be the preferred way to play a game like Space Pirate Trainer, and that we should look at it sort of opposite to you. I think you said 86%, which I would love. Why is it 86% and not 88%? What's the calculation? But like, I would just say, and I would go the other way with it. I think it's a really good experience on the Quest. $15 is a good price. And in fact, in thinking of the Quest and PC VR and how they play together, like this is what Quest games should be. Like I almost say that something like Space Pirate Trainer shouldn't be a PC VR game, or shouldn't be thought of as a PC VR game, because it's just it's a wave shooter. It's a really, really, really good wave shooter, but when you think of it, it doesn't need the PC. It's just fine standalone. Like we're not talking about making a mobile touch game for iPhone. We're not talking about it being on PlayStation VR or on Xbox. Well, it's kind of the same thought for us. Like Space Pirate Trainer, yeah, it was on PC VR. It was a great experience in 2016. Loved the game. I played it. I always jump back in there from time to time, just to, hey, man, I haven't played Space Pirate Trainer in a while. Well, the Quest, in my mind, should be the lead platform for a game like that that's coming in the future, whether they make a Space Pirate Trainer 2 or, just other games that kind of have a scratch a similar itch. Like Quest should be the focus on those types of games, and we shouldn't be worrying about those type of things coming to PC VR necessarily.
Yeah,
so yes, recommend $15.
Yeah. Space Pirate Training is fantastic on this. I did want to. I mean, I don't know, Chris, if you want to talk about Space Pirate Training, because I mean, for me, I agree with pretty much what Steve and Anthony have said on this. I think it feels great. It feels very close to what the PC VR version is anyway, and it feels good to shoot those guns. This is the only criticism I have on Robo Recall, and I think actually when Robo Recall was one of the first ones I went into on the Quest, and I thought, this is incredible. Yet again, my expectations were so balanced that I felt like what I'm experiencing here in the Quest was so comparable to the PC VR version, which I wasn't expecting. And it was only really the shooting part of that didn't feel quite so good. Nothing else. I expected lower textures in Robo Recall, and the models not looking quite so good, a little bit more polygon showing on the character models and stuff like that. That was all perfectly fine with me. And part of me, to what Anthony was saying, maybe it's the audio or something like that, or the haptics on the guns. I can't pin down exactly why Robo Recall doesn't feel quite as good. But yeah, so Chris, like Space Pirate Training, Robo Recall, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, you're all right. Like, playing Space Pirate Trainer, absolutely identical. I haven't played that game in so long, I forgot about it. Like, that game has always been a fun one, and it's definitely a good one to show to people. There's some people in chat who have wireless Vives. That's super awesome that you got wireless already. Here I am experiencing wireless for the first time on Quest, but I think for me, what makes it so different is that I get to, bring this to a friend's house, throw this in my backpack. I can't get friends to come over to my wireless setup if I had one. Like that'll almost never happen. So the fact that I can travel and show this to anybody is really, really cool. Robo Recall for me, I don't know, that one was a little bit of a downgrade. I mean, obviously graphically it would be a bit of a downgrade, but you're right. Once again, most of the gameplay shines through. Not as much as Space Pirate Trainer, but man, like, I would rather play Robo Recall on the Quest just so I don't have that cable. That was one of the worst games with the cable. So the fact that I don't have that, I really do like that game, especially since we got it free with cross-buy. If you have had a Rift and you're getting a Quest, the fact that it's free is super awesome. I don't know if I'd spend $30 for Robo Recall just in general. So that's a whole other thing we could talk about, but.
Okay. Well, let's do this because I think we're at pushing up on 2 hours here shortly. So let's go around. This is an idea that I had. Let's create a custom playlist of Oculus Quest launch titles. Each of us are going to pick 5 games from the launch library. I would like it to be 5 games we've all played. Like, it would be hard to recommend if you haven't played it, right? So yeah, just pick 5 games that if your best friend called you and said, "Hey, I just picked up a Quest. I have no games. I got money for 5. What 5 should I get?" So Chris, I'll send it back to you. What 5 games are you telling your friend to buy?
Yeah, all right. Then this isn't including any of the free games because, I mean, right off the bat, you need to get Big Screen, you need to get Rec Room. Those are kind of no-brainer games.
Yes, not including the free. Yeah, not including those.
Yeah, so, I mean, first I'd probably say get Vader Immortal. Just play through that. It's a good first experience on the Quest. I'd say Journey of the Gods. I'd love to play more of that. I still need to play more of that, but right off the bat, really good RPG there. And then I'd get Moss, so when you're chilling out or you're in bed, you want to just play a nice, soothing story game. I think Moss is great for that. Job Simulator really, really impressed me as well. Just the room scale aspect of that. And I forgot how they did it, but, it depends on the size of the room. So if you really trace out a really big play space, you actually have to walk around the entire play space. I wish more games did things like that. So for me, that's a really great game as well. And Super Hot. VR, that game once again has been fantastic. Easily would rather play that on Quest than anything else, and you really do feel like you're in the Matrix. That's a really good one to show people as well. So that's my top 5 out of the launch lineup, I'd say.
Okay, Anthony, what's your 5?
Well, one of the ways I'm going to shape this 5 is like I have this idea where if I had a Vive gamer, a longtime Vive gamer, never played the Quest, wasn't really paying attention to the Quest, and he comes over and I'm like, dude, I know you're a Vive gamer, you've been playing since 2016. I just want to put you in a few different games and then tell me what you think. And so what I would put them in is I would have this curated list of games that I think would just blow their frickin' mind. From a standpoint, they would be like, oh my God, this is basically a frickin' Vive practically that they've shrunk, and it's wireless and it's all in one. So I would say Beat Saber. Beat Saber is basically the same game. I mean, it is basically the same game. It's like 90% of that experience. It works. It's tried and true. I know it's $30. I know it's expensive, but damn, they just nailed it. Super hot. Again, perfect. I mean, it looks like so much of that experience has shined through. I don't really get what other people are saying about like, oh, it's a whole new game. I don't really feel like it's a whole new game. I think it's the same game, but it works great. Okay, so I did Beat Saber, super hot. Job Simulator. Oh my goodness. I was shocked by Job Simulator. I was kind of a little bit worried about Job Simulator because back in the old days, it didn't really like my i5 2500K. I don't know if that was like something back a 2016, 2017 thing, but I was worried. I was like, is the physics, like I know graphics are dumbed down, but is the physics going to work on an 835 like this with Job Simulator? I went into it. It was marvelous. I couldn't believe it. I was tickled by how great everything worked. It's basically Job Simulator. Space Pirate Trainer. I mean, I just talked about that, right? So that's 4 of them, right? Okay, so I need one more. The last one I'll throw in there is Face Your Fears 2. And I haven't spent a ton of time in Face Your Fears 2, but one of the things I like most about Face Your Fears 2 over everything else I've played is like, I feel like the geometry of being in that experience, to me, it felt like there were parts of time where I'm in Face Your Fears 2 and I'm free locomoting. I have my hands, things are happening, like scary things, like little jump scares and stuff. And I'm like, I feel like I'm in a Vive game. I feel like I'm in a PC VR game. I feel like I'm in a higher end game from the geometry and everything and just free locomoting. Maybe not the most graphically impressive PC VR game, but I felt like I was in a PC VR game. So those would be the 5 games that I would recommend.
Okay, Gary, what's your 5?
Just I guess sort of going back to what the others have saying. So I'd say just straight off the bat, super hot. Journey of the Gods, which we've already discussed as well. Vader Immortal would be in my top 5 as well. The other 2, which we've not covered quite so much, which I would include in my top 5. I would say that this varies depending on the kind of person that you are recommending it to, because I think Beat Saber is a fantastic experience as well. It's not in my top 5, of course, everybody knows that, but I think like Apex Construct, Apex Construct is like an adventure, and you play through this. It's so comparable to the PSVR version, and it works great. And Apex Construct is a really enjoyable game, so that would definitely be on my list. Is one to check out, and I don't see too many people talking about that one, which is a shame because I think it's the port over to the Quest has been so well done. The other big one is Shadow Point, and this is one that we've not really spoken about either. So Shadow Point is like a puzzler, but it's got like the aesthetic is almost similar to, like, again, it's like a Windlands, probably a little bit more detail in the world than Windlands, but it's kind of got that aesthetic. But it also reminds me, like, the vibe of it. It's almost like, I don't know if anybody played Firewatch on the PS4 or PC, but Firewatch, it's got this certain vibe to it, and Shadow Point has the same vibe, in my opinion. And you're playing through these puzzles which are based around sort of picking up objects or manipulating objects in order to create a shadow on the wall and getting through to the next section. But as well as that, it's not just a puzzle game. You've got a narrative in there as well. And this is, it's sort of, again, it drives you through and it makes you want to keep playing. I've played around about an hour of it so far, but this is another one. Along with Journey of the Gods, these are the two standouts. And they're the two new titles as well. But I think these are significant titles. Journey of the Gods, Shadowpoint are two significant titles which are so well done, and I absolutely recommend them for people picking up a Quest.
Okay. Well, mine is going to be, and it's not necessarily my 5 favorite, but I've tried to create a sampler platter for whomever I'm recommending to. So Beat Saber is kind of the top of the list just because I think it appeals to everybody on planet Earth except Gary. And then my next game is going to be Space Pirate Trainer, almost for the same reasons, because I feel like it can appeal to just about everybody. I've not met someone who didn't have a good time with that game. And then from there, I would say I'm going to put Moss in the list because it's a different change of pace. You're up, you're active, you're sweating. Now sit down and see what else VR can do beautifully. And then from there, I'll go ahead and throw Vader Immortal because it's Star Wars and because it's only $10. And then the last title I'll put in would kind of be I would choose an adventure title or something with a little more meat. So either be Journey of the Gods or Shadowpoint. I'll pick Journey of the Gods because I played it, but I think that gives sort of a wider palette of games. And I think those are all good games. Those are games that I have no reservations recommending at all to anybody hearing my voice right now. So, it's good list, I think. So I think that's going to, unless anybody has anything they want to add, I think this is going to wrap up our show here, episode 124. This is our immediate reactions to spending time with the Rift-S and the Oculus Quest. I'm sure next week we will be kind of delving into more of these games. I know that we'll be talking some PC VR games. We got a new launch coming out next week, a game to talk about there. So no one else has anything else. Forever hold your peace. Sayonara. We will see you next week.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.